So my first card on the list is Always Watching. It's a one generic mana, white enchantment. It's a rare from Shadows of Innistrad. Non-token creatures you control get +1/+1 and have vigilance. So this is basically an anthem. And if you're gonna have, in my opinion, if you're gonna have any kind of weenie strategy, you have to have at least a few anthems. And I prefer just not just anthems for like one color. You can have anthems for one color. I think this is better for all colors, so other colors can play it too. Second card is Anafenza, Kin Tree Spirit, which is white, legendary creature, spirit soldier at rare from Dragons of Darkir. Whenever another non-token creature enters the battlefield under your control, bolster one. Bolster is choose a creature with the least toughness among creatures you control and put a 1/1 counter on it. So that's whenever another non-token creature enters the battlefield, and it's a 2/2 for 2. So it's a 2/2 for 2, which is a very fair card. It's a soldier if you have soldier strategies going on. It's legendary creatures, so it can't copy itself, no shenanigans like that. But anytime another non-token creature enters the battlefield, like maybe a persist creature, from the Valir combo, that's a very good card. And I wouldn't pick it necessarily early, but it's a very mid-pick, solid beater that just does work. So it's a good card. Next, we have Brave the Elements, which is one white instant. Mine is an uncommon from M14, which is not the first printing. It says choose a color. White creatures control gain protection from the chosen color until end of turn. That means they can't be blocked, targeted, dealt damage, or enchanted by anything of that color. Basically, this is your win condition when you have all your white creatures out. If you have 5 white creatures and they have 5 green creatures, and for some reason you're not attacking each other, but you want to win and they're at 5 or 6 life because there's 9 life or whatever it is, and you have enough life to go, or enough damage to go kill them, but aren't able to get through, you play this to go attack. Or if they're attacking you with a bunch of creatures that are like similar color or the same color, you can play this. All your creatures block, you board wipe, and the next turn you win. So it's a very good card if you're playing white creatures anyway. You don't necessarily have to be playing white only creatures. They could be white and something else, and it's still getting protection. So if you're playing something like Kitchen Finks or Blood Baron of Viscopa or Obsidian, all of those creatures are the same way. So it's that white X or white creatures. So decent card. Only be playing if you're white, but it's a good card, and it needs to be in there if you're playing with white weenies at all. Next, we have Vrima's King of Ereskos, which is 1 colorless, 2 white for a mythic rare from Born of the Gods, legendary creature, cat soldier. Again, soldier thing, in case you're doing soldier stuff. Vigilance, it's a 3/4 with whenever it attacks, put a 1/1 white cat soldier creature token with vigilance on the battlefield attacking, so it's not tapped. And then when it blocks a creature, put a 1/1 white cat soldier creature token with vigilance on the battlefield blocking that creature as well. So it's a 3/4 that blocks with a 1/1. So it's kind of like a 4/5. Well, they both have vigilance. Nothing is tapping here, whether it's attacking or blocking. It's a very good card. It's the only card, I think, for Born of the Gods that retains any kind of value because it was just a crappy set. But anyways, it's a very good beater, very good cost. It doesn't get bolted. It's very efficient for what it does. It makes dudes. It does a lot. And unfortunately, it can't be splinter twinned and copied a bunch. But it does everything you want it to be if you're in white weenies. And it's a very easy first pick. This is Elite Inquisitor, which with full art, by the way, from a promo. White, 2/2, first strike, vigilance, protection from vampires and from werewolves and from zombies. I believe it's from Innistrad. It's a human soldier, not legendary. So it does protect itself against like Bloodghast, and if maybe you have a zombie theme going on, and it's just a very efficient creature for what it does. It protects itself with first strike. It doesn't tap out when it attacks, so it can also block. It does a lot of things for you, and it's just a very solid white creature that you can easily fill in as your next 5th or 6th card and add an anthem or 2, and it becomes a 3/3 or 4/4, and it's very efficient for 2 mana. End of story. Next we have Fiendslayer Paladin, which is 1 generic going to 1/2 white, and it's a creature human knight. And I got mine. It's originally printing as M14, which is a rare. I think it might have had another printing, possibly. First strike as lifelink. It has can't be the target of black or red spells your opponents control, and it's a 2/2. So it is a 2/2 for 3 mana. But just remember this: it has first strike, so it's good on attack and defense with first strike. It has lifelink, so if you're down or against red or just wanting to gain more life for whatever reason, get more life. And then the best part about the card is it can't be the target of black or red spells. Not protection, but it can't be Doomblade, and it can't be killed by any black spell, and it can't be targeted by any black spell, and it can't be bolted off the field. So it's good against black, it's good against red. Most cards, like for blue and white and for blue, white, and green, most cards that kill in those three colors do not kill. Blue bounces, green has a couple fight cards, and then, which again, probably kill it, but you might get some lifelink out of it. And then white has only a couple cards, which like Swords of Plowshare and Path to Exile. Man, if someone Path to Exile this or Swords of Plowshare this, would be pretty happy because there's all the other kinds of things in my deck that probably are crazy too. So decent card, solid card. Not the best, but solid. Next we have Hand of Honor, which is a white creature human samurai at uncommon for some Kamigawa block. Protection for black has Bushido 1, which is when this blocks or becomes blocked, it gets +1/+1 until end of turn. So if it attacks and becomes blocked, it gets +1/+1. If it blocks and just on defense, it gets +1/+1. So it's a 3/3 attacking if it gets blocked. It's a 3/3 defending if it's blocking. So it's a good card for its cost. It's very efficient. It has protection for black, so it has a white knight effect on it. It's not legendary, so you could get copied of it. And it doesn't die to Doomblade and other black effects that do kill cards. So it's very efficient for 2. It's a 2/2. Doesn't have first strike, but it becomes a 3/3 if it has any trouble with other creatures as far as blocking or becoming blocked. So it can be bigger on defense and offense, and it protects itself. Very decent card for its cost. Hero of Bladehold. 2 generic mana, white, creature, human knight. So it's a night thing in case you have a night thing going on. This is a pre-release card. This is a mythic rare from I think Mirrodin-ish block, or maybe it's a shard. So I'm not really sure. It has Battle Cry, and it says whenever Hero Bladehold attacks, put 2 1/1 white soldier creature tokens onto the battlefield tapped and attacking. So what's interesting here is that it's a knight that makes soldiers. That's a little weird, and it's also a 3/4. But the cool thing is the Battle Cry thing, they happen at the same time, and the way you stack it, you can stack it to where you get the tokens and they get the 1/0, so they're actually 2 1s when they're attacking. And I've actually seen this card in my own cube drafted in control decks and in aggro decks and in Splinter Twin decks, where you draft it, you put Splinter Twin on it, and you make copies of it, and you just go off like crazy and make a bunch of tokens and keep on battle crying off, and it's very good. And then people in control decks use it as a win condition because why not? It's a 3/4, doesn't get bolted, so it's good against red decks. And if black doesn't kill it right away, it makes dudes, which is a win condition. Just having 2 dudes out is a win condition. One dude can win you the game. So it's kind of win condition in itself, but really the white meanie is the top of the curve, and it really just makes everything bigger and kills everything. It's a pretty decent card. Next we have Sigiled Paladin, which is white, creature human knight. It's an uncommon from some commander set, I believe. And this has first strike and exalted, and exalted says whenever a creature you control attacks alone, that creature gets +1/+1 until end of turn, and it's a 2/2. So this might have been like one of my last cards as far as in the cut, and made it in the 45 for a white, and I just really need more white little creatures. And yeah, it's a knight, so maybe if you have knight effects, it goes off. But the problem with this card is if you have white weenies, you have a lot of little dudes that work together to make the win. But this card basically says it's trying to win by itself because the only way it gets buffed is if it attacks by itself. So, or something else alone attacks and it buffs it. So it could maybe like have a little bit of more of a punch to punch through. If it attacks by itself, it's a 3/3 with first strike, which is kind of a powerful effect for 3 mana. But it can say, well, if you drop a 4/4 down, that makes it a 5/5, so that kind of helps. It can help break barriers a little bit, but honestly, it's just a solid little dude. That Knight of the Meadowgrain, 2 white mana for a creature, Kithkin Knight. Again, if you have a Knight theme, it's nice. First strike, lifelink, 2/2, just a solid body 2/2 that has first strike and lifelink. And it does a little bit. It's one of my favorite little cards because it does so much on a little body, and it's just the artwork is great. It's just like this little on the goat thing, and it's just awesome. It's just a solid dude, and yep. Knight of the White Orchid. It's 2 white for a creature human knight. That's rare from mine's from Magic Origins, but I think the first printing was, I think, Alara possibly. It's first strike, and when it enters the battlefield, if an opponent controls more lands than you, you may search your library for a plains card to put on the battlefield, then shuffle your library. So it doesn't come in play tapped, it comes untapped. It says a plains card, so it doesn't have to be basic either. And it's a good ramp for white, and it protects itself in the 2/2 first strike. It's a very solid body for what little a little white guy does, and it's great. Next, we have Masako the Humorless, which is 2 generic mana, 1 white for a legendary creature, Human Advisor. It's a rare from some Kamigawa block. You may play it, and anytime you can cast play an instant, so it has flash. And as tapped creatures you control may block as though they were untapped. So basically, you do it as a combat trick. They swing in. All your guys are tapped out. Your white guys, because usually sometimes they don't have vigilance. You smash it down. Then your creatures get to block. And usually, a lot of the white little creatures, if you've seen, they have first strike. So not only do they block, this one doesn't have to block. It could, it doesn't have to. And it basically is just a really nice combat trick for a 2/1 on a 3 body. It's not much more than that, but it's a really nice little weenie that does that. And it, obviously, with any Anthem, it can get bigger. So just a nice little combat trick for white. Next, we have Mirran Crusader, which is a 1 generic mana, white creature, human knight. Again, if you have a knight thing, it might be nice. It is a rare from Mirrodin, I think. And it has double strike protection from black and from green. And it is a 2/2. So it is only a 2/2 through 3. However, you do get a double strike thing. So it attacks, does first strike damage, then regular damage. And it has protection from black and green. So it can't be blocked by green or black creatures. And can't be targeted from black or green spells at all. So it could be bad if you're trying to like enchant something on it, possibly. But you throw a sword on it, and it gets bigger, and it has double strike, and that's pretty nasty. Plus, it means it does die to burn spells, but all the black cards that do target it in the negative way, it does not. It gets protection from that. And if it's just trying to get in, no black or green creatures can block it. So green creatures that are bigger than it cannot block it. And it has double strike, which is such a great thing. So it is a very good card. It's one of the near and dear cards I fell in love with early. It's just a little guy, and it does a lot for your team. Next, we have Mirrored Entity, which is a 2 generic mana, 1 white creature shapeshifter. It's a rare from Shards of Alara, I believe. Maybe it's a commander set, I'm not sure. Changeling, this card is every creature type at all times. So if you have pack rats out, it's a pack rat. If you have demons out, it's a demon. And it's everything else at the same time. It says X mana : creatures you control become XX and gain all creature types until end of turn. So, and it's also a 1/1. So that means if you have this, you play something turn 1, then you play something turn 2, and then you play this turn 3, and then turn 4 you dump 4 mana into it, and let's assume all your creatures are still alive. That means you have 3 4/4s attacking on turn 4, which is a very powerful effect. If you have 6 guys out and you dump 5 mana into it, you deal 30 damage. You can also can help you protect itself against wrath effects. Even if you top deck this and you have nothing else on your board, you can dump 10 mana into it next turn and do a 10/10, swinging every turn. Now, it's good on aggressive and it's good on defense. So it's just a very solid card, and I love it, and people forget about this card and don't understand what it does until it crushes you. Next, we have Monastery Mentor, which is a 2 generic mana, 1 white creature human monk, and it's a mythic rare from Fate Reforged. It has prowess, so prowess is whenever you cast a non-creature spell, this creature gets +1/+1 until end of turn. Non-creature spell, so artifact, enchantment, instant sorcery, planeswalker, and then it also has whenever you cast a non-creature spell, so a prowess trigger-like effect, put a 1/1 white monk creature token with prowess onto the battlefield. So therefore, it's a total build-around. It is a staple in Vintage. It is arguably one of the most powerful creatures, and it's not most powerful, but one of the best creatures ever printed for its cost. Yeah, it's only 2/2 for 3 mana, but it has so many things where you can make dudes, and it makes itself bigger for almost just playing the game. It's very powerful. The human thing is, I guess, a little relative, but for the most part, it's just a very powerful card. You can totally build around it. You don't have to play weenies with it. You can play weenies with it, and you can also just play control shell around it. You can just play Moxes around it, and just very good card. It's a total of first pickable if you wanted. Next, we have Mother of Ruins, which is 1 white for a creature cleric uncommon from Urza's Legacy. As tap, target creature you control gains protection from a color of your choice until end of turn, and it is a 1/1. So it is basically a card that protects your other dudes, whether it be big creatures, small creatures, powerful creatures. You can also block with it and protect itself and just chump block with things all day long. And as long as they don't have trample, you're in the clear. And it's a very good card, a very solid pick. Next, we have Precinct Captain, which is 2 white, a creature, human soldier. So if you have a soldier theme going on, it's there. It's a rare from Return to Ravnica, and it's first strike, and whenever it deals combat damage to a player, put a 1/1 white soldier creature token on the battlefield, and it's 2/2. So therefore, it is very good for its cost. It makes dudes for dealing combat damage, and it has first strike itself, so it protects itself on the offense and defensive side of things. And what's kind of weird is that Mythic Spoiler doesn't view this card as actually part of Return to Ravnica, and it's not actually in the Return to Ravnica expansion set of actually being a part of Return to Ravnica, so that's one little thing there. But very good card for its cost, makes dudes, and in my Paper Magic days on the tabletop, it was a beater and totally controlled little cards that didn't do much. It kills bears, and it's a very efficient card. Next, we have Soldier of the Pantheon, which is 1 white creature, human soldier, again, the soldier thing. It's a rare from Theros, and it's a 2/1 with protection from multicolored, and whenever an opponent casts a multicolored spell, you gain 1 life. So, Savannah Lions was a thing back in the day where Savannah Lions didn't happen right away, and it was a 2/1 for 1 white mana, and people lost their minds, and that's all it did. It was a 2/1 for 1 white mana. This is a 2/1 for 1 white mana, and it's also a soldier on top of that. That being said, it's protection from multicolored. That means it can't be killed by multicolored spells. It can't be blocked by multicolored creatures, and when it does block multicolored creatures, it doesn't take damage. And it only has a 1 toughness. So yeah, it does die to a lot of things, but for 1 mana, it does a lot. It turns the clock on quick, and it's a lot. It's the Savannah Lions it's on steroids. Next, we have Spear of Heliod, which is a 1 generic mana, white, so 2 white mana. Legendary enchantment artifact, rare from Theros. Creatures you control have +1/+1, and it also has 1 generic mana, white, comma, tap, destroy target creature that dealt damage to you this turn. So mainly this is a Anthem effect that gives all your creatures a buff. Second, there are some things in Magic that, other than just being an enchantment, being an artifact is kind of relative. Now, even though it's more susceptible to being destroyed because it's both an artifact and an enchantment, it could be tinkered away and to get like a Blightsteel Colossus or something. But I'm not sure if that's just a thing, but the whole where it can destroy things might be. It is not good that something already dealt damage to you, but if you were able to survive and kill it with Spear of Heliod, might just be a reason for something not to deal damage to you. Again. So, not a bad card. I like the Anthem effect. Next, we have Thalia, Guardian of Thraben. Or Thraben. Anyways, 1 generic mana, 1 white, legendary creature, human soldier, a rare from some Innistrad block. First strike, non-creature spells cost 1 colorless more to cast, and it's a 2/1. So it's a 2/1 for first strike for 2 mana. That's good. It's a soldier, so it has some soldier theme going on. That's good. It tells all the decks that are not playing creature spells, so anything that maybe like cast to kill this thing, costs 1 more to cast just to kill it. Just to kill it. So if they try to fatal push it, it costs 2 to fatal push it, not 1. So I think it's a very good card. It tells all the control decks to go screw themselves. But it's good for its cost. It's a hate bearer, and it's just a good weenie. Itself 2/1 first strike for 2 mana, and it's not double white. Solid card. Now we have Thalia, Heretic Cathar, which is 2 generic mana, 1 white, legendary creature, human soldier. It is a rare from Eldritch Moon, and I have a pre-release card. It has first strike, and it's creatures and non-basic lands. Non-basic lands, your opponent's control enter the battlefield tapped, and it is a 3/2 for 3 mana, and it is very splashable. It's a better Thalia in my opinion for a lot of reasons, and it is a hate bearer, and I would play this all day long in Cube. I would play it in Standard. I mean, if I was playing Standard, I'd play this card all the time. It's just such a good card. It punishes people for trying to play too many different colors. It has first strike, so it is a beater. It does so much. Anyone that's trying to come back in the game, their creatures come in tapped. Anytime they come in, they're coming in tapped. So it's just a very solid card. Yeah, it dies to a shock, but it's still a very good card. Now, finally, we have White Knight, which is 2 white mana, for a 2/2 protection from black and first strike. So this is your iconic white weenie, and it's a knight. So if there's any knight theme going on, that's nice. And it's your iconic white weenie card that originally started off. I think it was originally printed in alpha. And the alpha version is going for a lot. I think I have a revised version. I think that's what this is, or an unlimited. And this is a very good card. It's a very solid card. It doesn't die to all the Doom Blades and whatnot. And if you just need something on turn 2 to attack in or put a sword on, this is what you need. And it has first strike, so it's good on offense and defense. Just very solid. We have our first control card, or what I consider maybe more of a control card. We have Aven Mindcensor, which is 2 generic mana, 1 white mana creature, bird, wizard, and uncommon. It has flash, it has flying. It has, if an opponent would search a library, that player searches the top 4 cards of that library instead, and it's a 2/1. So it has evasion, and it's a 2/1. So it is a little bit of a clock, but for the most part, it's not a beater, and it's not mainly for a beater. It's mainly for if a person uses a fetch land and they fetch, they actually have to say what they're fetching for, whether it be a whatever color. So if if they're searching for something that's, say they're playing blue-white and they're searching for a swamp, they have to say swamp. And if they only have 1 swamp in their deck, well, maybe they're only searching for the first 4 cards. But it's really more for if they're using Natural Order, Pattern of Rebirth, try to cheat out something big, then they only look at the top 4 cards of their library. Now, sometimes that could be nothing. And I understand in a 40-card deck, 4 cards means more cards and there's less cards to go through. However, it doesn't matter. If you're trying to cheat out an Eldrazi, if you're trying to cheat out something big, if you're just trying to do something silly where you're searching your deck, even if you're just tutoring for a card, even if you just say Vampire Tutor, Mystical Tutor, Worldly Tutor, and you're just looking for a card to tutor out, let's say like the end of their turn, the end of your turn, you flash out, they can only start looking for the top 4 cards of the library. That's just a very powerful effect. Even Mindcensor is a control-ish card that disrupts that. Next we have Balance. Balance is a 1 generic mana, 1 white sorcery. I think it's from Revised. I think it was on the printings as well, possibly. It is a sorcery, and it has a lot of words on it, but basically I'm going to sum it up like this. If player A has 7 cards in hand, 7 lands in play, and 1 creature, and player B has 4 cards in hand, 4 lands in play, and 0 creatures, then player A must equal out to player B, as in the lowest amount. So player A will discard 3 cards, sacrifice 3 lands, and sacrifice the 1 creature to equal player B. Player B is probably going to be the one playing it. So this answers Emrakul. So there's also an answer to, it helps the aggro deck help out against control. It balances out the board, and it helps, and it's like a control card, and it's kind of like an anti-control card. It's just a very good card all around, and it's a must-have in all cubes. Next we have Banishing Light. Banishing Light is a 2 generic mana, 1 white enchantment from uncommon at Journey into Nyx. When Banishing Light enters the battlefield, exile target non-land permanent and opponent controls until Banishing Light leaves the battlefield. Again, this is an answer for Emrakul because it comes into play and then targets, not a target like a spell. So it answers that. It answers Planeswalkers if you had them in your cube, which is not in my cube. It answers other enchantments. It answers artifacts. It answers Blightsteel Colossus, which is a huge threat. It answers basically everything but lands. And it's just a very good card. It's a 1 white, so you can splash it any color. You're probably going to play it in blue-white. You can play it in black-white. You can play it any just mono-white. You can play it in enchantment themes if you wanted to. It's just a very good card. It's very like an Oblivion Ring effect, and I wouldn't say it's a must-have, but it's a very good card. And the artwork's pretty beautiful too. Then we have Disenchant. Disenchant is a 1 generic mana, 1 white, instant speed, destroy target artifact or enchantment. And it's a common from Urza Saga. At least this printing is. This is one of those cards where Magic didn't know what they were doing early on. They gave white a bunch of things, and they didn't understand what white or green was doing. And basically, this is a very good white card because it answers things that it shouldn't be doing in its color. This is basically what Naturalize is, and Naturalize is a green card. This is what green does. It takes away artifacts and enchantments, not what white does. So therefore, if you're going to play Control and you need an answer for something, instead of splashing green to play Naturalize, you play this. It's a very solid staple card that every white control deck wants to either side in or main board in, depending on your matchup. Then we have Kataki War's Wage. It's a 1 generic mana, 1 white, legendary creature spirit, rare. This is the modern event deck one that I had got. It is a 2/1, and it has all artifacts that have at the beginning of your upkeep. So on the beginning of their turn, like whoever's turn it is, sacrifice those artifacts unless you pay 1 colorless mana. So this is a control-like card that's also a creature, so it's proactive. It can win you the game, and it deals with moxes. So if a mox attacks for 1 color, the mox does nothing but stay on the battlefield and say there's an artifact. Maybe they want to do that. But it basically says that like creatures that are artifacts are very powerful, that want to play, they have to pay 1 at the beginning of their upkeep. So there is a drawback. No, they're not necessarily losing the game, but sometimes you want to keep your artifacts in play for your Tolarian Academy, that when you want to break stuff and do some silly stuff with, but at the same time you have to pay for it. So this is a very nice control-like card that helps keep the game more balanced and keep it more in check and keep it more fair for a player that wants to play a little more fair. So this card is a must-have for control-like effects, and it can also win you the game. Then we have Linvala, Keeper of Silence, which is a 2 generic mana, white, legendary creature angel, mythic rare from Worldwake, I believe, possibly. It has flying. Activated abilities of creatures your opponent's control cannot be activated, and it's a 3/4. So it's a flyer. It's an angel. Can't be copied. That's good. Activated abilities would include Griselbrand's pay 7 life, draw 7 cards, which would make Griselbrand a 7/7 flying life. I think, yeah, it still beats Linvala, but it keeps that in check. Deactivates that. Takes off Morphling on all the crazy things it could do. Takes away Aetherling. It takes away any mana producers, because mana producers are activated abilities, because they're tap usually. Anything like a fire breathing effect where you pay 1 red and get +1 all that's turned off. So this is a very nice card to have in control-like decks or control-ish decks, or things that you want to keep in check or you want to play a little more fair. This does win you the game, so it is a 3/4 flyer that has evasion and can get in and over creatures, and also it helps their creatures, and because it says opponent's control, so your activated abilities turn on, but theirs do not. So it's very nice. It's a very nice card. It was $40 when I originally got it, when Birthing Pod was out and a thing, and now it's only like 10. So it's a nice pickup now, and I would pick up some if you want to put it in your cube. Next we have Mana Tithe, which is a 1 white mana instant. I think it's from Planar Chaos. It's a common. Not really sure. It is counter target spell unless its controller pays 1 colorless, or 1 generic mana. This is a very good card. I think it's a shock card. I think when you play this, your opponent's going to be like, there's counterspells in white? Oh my gosh, I never knew. And yeah, it's a very interesting card. I mean, usually white does not have counterspells. Usually it's a blue card. But you could probably throw like a couple of people off playing this, especially if you're not even playing blue, especially if you're playing white weenies and you're just trying to keep something in check that they have either bordered in or play at main board. I mean, because essentially a counterspell is a kill card. You're dealing, yeah, it's a 1-for-1 trade, but you're dealing with something that they have that's a combo-like effect or something that's going to really win them the game. So like they play like Channel, and they don't have any more mana up. You counter it, they basically have screwed themselves, and maybe that's their whole deck around. Or maybe they have Tinkered, and they don't have any more mana. They've just lost the game, unless they have a Force of Will or a Daze. There's only a couple cards where you do a counterspell where it pays 1, and there's only a couple cards where if they have all their mana tapped out, they only have the lands to pick up or play. There's only like 2 cards along with you, but I think that's like that. So it's a very good card. It can really surprise people, and you don't have to play blue to play counterspell, so it's pretty nice. Then we have Oblivion Ring, which is 2 generic mana, 1 white enchantment, uncommon from M13. It says, when Oblivion Ring enters the battlefield, exile another target non-land permanent. So another, not opponents. And then it says, when it leaves the battlefield, return exile a card to the battlefield under its owner's control. So you can exile your own stuff. And you can exile another Oblivion Ring. So that's nice. And what I think is also nice is that it's basically, like I said, Banish Link, but this became for that. So you can exile Planeswalkers, enchantments, like the same enchantment. You can exile your own stuff let's say you want to do something where you're playing control and you want to wipe the board, but you got a creature out, and you're like, well, I got a creature out, and maybe if it comes back with an enter the battlefield trigger, you go this, and then you wipe the board, and then you kind of save your dude, and maybe there's a way to maybe bounce the Oblivion Ring back to your hand, and then when you bounce, like when I say bounce it, I mean saying if you have a spell like that brings it back to your hand, then that means it would leave the battlefield. Your creature could come back. Any TB trigger, enter the battlefield trigger would happen. Maybe where you get more guys, maybe where you get something broken, and then it's a really nice thing. So there could be a lot of synergies. It's a very good card in control, and it's just an easy card to pick up, and it's cheap, and it's very good. Then we have Parallax Wave, 2 generic mana, 1 white enchantment. I think it's a rare from, I'm not sure what block that is. Fading 5. Fading means every upkeep you remove a fade counter, and when you have no fade counters, it gets destroyed. The card, it gets buried, so basically it goes to the graveyard. So that's just kind of what fading is. So it starts off with 5 fading counters, and it also has remove a fade counter from Parallax Wave, remove target creature from the game, so it gets exiled. When Parallax Wave leaves play, each player returns to play all cards he or she is removed from the Parallax Wave. So basically, it has instant speed, you don't have to pay anything, exile something off the field. It's a very good enchantment. It can be a board wipe that just as a, yeah, it takes away like a couple dudes, a couple turns, but that might just be enough to get in and just to completely destroy them, because like board wipes are 4 mana like this, where it destroys everything. But if you have creatures and they have creatures, but you have 3 guys and they have 3 guys, and you take away 3 guys, their 3 best guys at instant speed, and exile them, that could win you the game right there. And it happens for a couple turns. Because say you remove 2 fade counters off right away, then your next turn it's down to 2 because you would have to go from 3 to 2. So every turn later, so you could remove 2 guys right away and have it keep going for 4 turns, because it's fading counters happen when there's no fade counters to remove. So even if you went from 1 to 0, then this enchantment would still be in play for another turn. That's what's kind of confusing about this card. It's a definite board wipe. It takes care of things right away. Unless they have hexproof or protection from white, they are susceptible and can be exiled. Emrakul, Blightsteel Colossus, big threats like that. So anything indestructible still, exile. So very good card for control or board wipe effects. After that, we have Path to Exile, which is 1 white mana, instant speed, uncommon. This one's from the Modern Event deck. It's printed in other sets as well. It says exile target creature. Its controller may search his or her library for a basic land card, put that card onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle his or her library. One thing to remember about this card is that it used to be where if they didn't read the card properly, you could kind of get away with, they didn't search for basic land, you get away with, you just exile the card for free. Now it's, are you sure you're missing the trigger? So you have to kind of make sure they see that they understand, like see, and if they say no, or they just like ignore you, or are just dumbfounded or didn't understand the card or whatever, that you can still kind of get away with it. But for the most part, it's more of a push thing that it happens all the time. But still, 1 white mana for exile targets any big threat, like a Blightsteel Colossus, Emrakul, Ulamog. Emrakul doesn't get hit by this, but Blightsteel Colossus, Ulamog, which are both indestructible creatures, but they're both possibly 1-turn kills depending on where you're at. It's a very good, cheap, efficient control card, or just card that deals with things, and is very efficient for its mana cost. Samurai of the Pale Curtain, white, creature, fox, samurai, uncommon from the Kamigawa block. It has Bushido on it, when it says when this creature, this is blocks or becomes blocked, it gets +1/+1 until end of turn. It also says if a permanent would be put into a graveyard, remove it from the game instead. So it is also a 2/2. So basically, this card, there's a card called Rest in Peace, which is a 1 white, 1 generic mana, and basically all cards in all graveyards are exiled. Basically, this is a kind of like that effect, but on a 2/2 body that also can get bigger by itself. I think it's more proactive. Like I keep saying, that proactive cards, it can win you the game, and it also deals with graveyard effects. Graveyard effects are hard enough to get off as it is, so this is a very fair way to deal with that and also be proactive and not just shut down the board state. So you want to win the game, not just shut things down, this is the card for you, and this is the card for me. Stasis Snare, 1 generic mana, white enchantment, uncommon from Battle for Zendikar. It has flash. It also has when Stasis Snare enters the battlefield, exile target creature and opponent controls until Stasis Snare leaves the battlefield. So basically, it deals with just creatures, only on your opponent's control. However, so it's not as so we can't exile your stuff, maybe for whatever reason, and only can do creatures your opponent's control. But it's at instant speed, so it deals with anything that's snuck attack in, anything that's whipped in, anything that's reanimated, anything that's cheated into play right then and there, anything that has haste that could kill you instantly on the fly that turn. This deals with it right there and then, and stops it dead in its tracks. Only for 3 mana. I mean, yeah, a little bit heavy and white, but still very fair card, and I would play it in every queue possible. Swords to Plowshare, 1 white, instant, target creature is exiled from game entirely. Return to owner's deck only when game is over. So basically exile. Creature's controller gains life equal to creature's power. So basically it's like Path to Exile, however, they're gaining life, and in most control decks, as everyone knows, if in a control deck, them gaining life isn't a big deal. You're all about the end game, you're all about controlling the board. You're all about making sure that you win in the end with your creatures and your win conditions or whatever it may be. So it could be mill at this point, but basically it's a very good card for white. It's one of the best cards, best removals in the game. It deals with everything entirely, pretty much. Other than like Emrakul, which protects from colored spells or protects from white. It doesn't deal with Mother Runes too well, but for the most part, you wouldn't play it in a burn deck because you don't want them to gain life in that deck, but you would play it in anything else basically. So it's a very decent card, and pick up a copy for yourself. Then we have Terminus, which is a 4 generic mana white sorcery rare from Avacyn Restored. Put all creatures on the bottom of their owner's libraries, and then it has Miracle for 1 white. And it says you may cast this card for its miracle cost when you draw it, if it's the first card you draw this turn. So, I'm just going to explain this really quick because I didn't understand it fully, because I didn't play in this set at standard. So if it's their turn, and you somehow draw a card on their turn, and you want this effect to go off, you flip it up, because you're drawing it for that turn, because it doesn't say your turn, it just says for the turn that you're drawing the card. So if they're attacking in and somehow you have like an ancestral vision or something like that, or recall, and you flip up a card and it's the first card that you would draw, say Terminus, because for some reason you manipulate your deck so it's the first card or you know it's there. You flip it up, you pay 1 white and instant speed, and it has the effect. Or you could do it at the beginning of your turn, which that's how some miracles worked best, but this might work best on their turn because it's an instant. It's a sorcery for instead of 6 mana, it's 1 white, and it's basically board wiping everything. Yeah, they're not necessarily getting destroyed, but that's also better because some creatures are indestructible or they do silly things when they die. So this is basically saying put all the cards in play on bottom of the owner's libraries for 1 white mana. Very good, very efficient. I'd play it in every deck that's control-like card, or even if it's something that maybe they have a better creatures in play that you do, and you just want to be able to survive and be hasty the next couple turns. And then our last control card from white is Wrath of God. 2 generic mana, white sorcery, mythic rare from whatever, but I think it was a rare when it originally came out. Destroy all creatures that can't be regenerated. So it's a board wipe, and it completely destroys any regeneration effects, so if anything would be regenerated, just try to save himself from either Golgari Charm or a regeneration effect on them, or maybe a spell that gives a creature regenerate. It negates that, like a Lotless Troll. So it also destroys the whole board. It's a very good control card. This is one of the like Day of Judgment is another card that basically does the same thing but without the regeneration effect, and I would limit myself on board wipes, but at the same time, like, this is a very good one to have. You got to have a couple. You got to keep it balanced. You got to keep it fair. Then we have Archangel Avacyn, which is our first combo synergy light card, which is 3 generic mana, white, legendary creature angel, mythic rare from Shadows over Innistrad, has flash, has flying, has vigilance, has when it enters the battlefield, creatures you control gain indestructible until end of turn, and it has when a non-angel creature you control dies, transform Archangel Avacyn at the beginning of your next upkeep. So you can do it on their turn and protect all your guys, and then somehow, and then it flips over into this. Avacyn the Purifier, which is a legendary creature angel. It's a flying, and when it transforms, it deals 3 damage to each other creature, yours and theirs, and each opponent. And therefore, it also becomes a 6/5. So it goes from a 4/4 to a 6/5 and has a board-ish like pseudo board wipe effect. It's a very good card. You can play in a control deck as your only creature in Wind because you can smash it down, protect anything you actually have other than maybe a creature. Like other creatures, maybe you have mana lands that are turned into creatures at the time. Maybe you have blocked and they have, like after they attacked it and then you smash it and play. Your guys don't die. Those do, so it's like a huge like living end kind of board wipe effect. And then on top of that, it's as vigilance can attack and it's flying and as evasion it can attack and it's a very, very good card. Then we have Archangel of Thune, which is 3 generic mana, white, creature angel, mythic rare from M14, flying, lifelink, and then it also has, whenever you gain life, put a 1/1 counter on each creature you control, so that means itself as well, and it's a 3/4 flyer. So therefore, it attacks and it has flying, usually it's going to get through because it has flying. It has lifelink, so it can like trigger itself on itself. So like it attacks and for 3, you gain 3 life, and then trigger happens, and just by itself, it turns into a 4/5, and therefore infinitely gets bigger, and it infinitely gives you more life, and you can copy it because it's not a legendary. And there's also a combo in the cube with Spike Feeder. So basically, Spike Feeder is a green card that says whenever you start off with 2 counters, and whenever you remove a counter from it, you gain 2 life, and therefore it would trigger with this, and therefore you would gain the life, you get the counter back on, you can infinitely gain life, and then you put. You have to set a number, so you could put like I gain 100 life and have 100 Spike Feeder and 100 Archangel of Thune or something like that. So it can be a win condition on that end of it, but it's just a good card. You can use it with a Scavenging Ooze where you just, I remove something from your graveyard, gains 2 life. All your guys get counters. Anything that gives you life, it's a very good synergy card. You play it in green-white decks, you play it in white decks, you play it by itself, you can play it as a win condition, you can play it with anything. It's just a very good value card. It has so much synergies with anything in the queue that really want to play with life in or creatures. Then we have Baneslayer Angel, which is a 3 generic mana white creature angel mythic rare from M10. I think it would have had a couple other printings, possibly. Flying, first strike, lifelink, protection from demons and from dragons, and it's a 5/5. So by itself, it is flying and gets through. Then it also has first strike. So 5/5 flying for 5 mana is very good. Sarah Angel is the same cost, and it's a 4/4 flying vigilance. Doesn't have first strike, and it's a 4/4. So this is one. It's a little bit bigger. It has flying. It has vigilance. Okay, it doesn't have vigilance, but it has first strike. So that means it's going to kill the 4/4. It's good on defense and good on offense. It has lifelink. It gives you life. It's protection from demons and dragons, so therefore it protects you from all the dragons in the deck. It also protects you from Desecration Demon. So it doesn't take any damage from any demons or dragons. It's just a very good solid card. You can copy it. You can do a lot of silly stuff with it, but it's just a very good white creature card that's solid. And maybe on the very top of your card, maybe some of your Winnie decks, but really it's just, you can play it in most decks, and it's just going to see a lot of play. And yeah, it could be Doombladed, but it's a solid card. After that, we have Elishnorn Grand Centibite, which is a 5 generic mana white legendary creature, Praetor, mythic rare for Modern Masters, and it has vigilance. Other creatures you control get +2/+2. Usually effects like that is +1/+1, but now it's +2/+2. And your creatures your opponents control get -2/-2. So it's a 4 power, 4 toughness swing in your favor, and it's a 4/7 vigilance. So it doesn't get the buff itself, but you're usually not going to be hard casting. You're going to be treating this into play either through Show and Tell, Sneak Attack, Reoccurring Nightmare. Usually in your Reanimator strategies, it's played in Reanimator Legacy. It's a very good card against little guys like your white. It's an anti-white creature kind of thing because it's going to kill all the little white weenies, and it's going to kill anything that's small, but it's going to buff all your guys that are out there as well. So if you're playing the weenies, your weenies instead of being 2/2s now they're 4/4s, so it's a very good card for that. Um, it's just a very solid card. Even if you just top deck it and you're just like, I'll play this. Sometimes just the effect of the -2/-2 is going to kill other things, and maybe be like the win condition. So it's a nice top deck if you have land out. Hopefully you're not in that state, but sometimes you get in that state in those kind of situations, and it's a very good reanimating spell. Pick it in reanimator, play it. Play it if you're going to cheat something out. Just play it if you're not playing weenies and you want to be dumb and cheat things out. It's just a very, very solid card, and play it every time, and they're really not that expensive. Then we have Enlightened Tutor, which is a 1 white instant from Mirage. I'm not sure if it's a common, but it looks like it. Search your library for an artifact or enchantment card and reveal that card to all players. Shuffle your library and put the revealed card back on top of it. So basically, you play you turn 1, you play a land or whatever, or whatever it is you can produce white mana with. You say go. They play whatever their turn is on turn 1 or turn 2 if you're on the draw. End of your turn, instant speed, you play this. Search for any artifact or enchantment, so you're playing Tinker or you need an enchantment. Anything that you want, artifact or enchantment wise, because there's artifact creatures and there's enchantment creatures. And you put it on top of your library, and then you draw it for your turn. And it's safer on top of your library in some ways instead of your hand. So that's not too bad, and I think it's a really good tutor for a lot of things that you can draw up in a lot of strategies. Very solid. Flicker Wisp. 1 generic mana, white creature elemental. Uncommon for Modern Masters. Flying, when Flicker Wisp enters the battlefield, exile another target permanent. Return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. And it's a 3/1. So you do it on your turn, and this is basically a card that you play with if your creature, say it enters play like a Hornet Queen, and it gives you 3/1/1s or 4/1/1s, and it's a dude, and then you play like the next turn, you're like, okay, I mean, you can be a little dirtly about it, but those 1/1s have flying, so they do have evasion, so it is a win condition more or less. You play this, you get the Hornet Queen out of play, and or maybe you attack with your Hornet Queen and stuff in the air, and then you play this your second main step, your second main phase. You exile it and it re-enters with 4/1/1 guys. So basically, you get another ETB trigger off whatever you're taking out of play, and it's just very synergetic card. It's a 3/1 flyer for 3. It's solid. It's going to get you in, and it's going to deal some damage, and yeah, it can block other flyers, but at the end of the day, it can win you the game. So, and it's very synergetic, and it's everything you want to do with a flicker-like effect, and that's what this card is, a Flicker Wisp. Then we have Restoration Angel, which is a 3 generic mana, 1 white creature angel, flash flying. When this enters the battlefield, you may exile a target non-angel creature you control and then return that card to the battlefield under your control. So this enters play, again with any enter the battlefield triggers. This enters play, you target something that's not angel, like a Kitchen Finks in Modern, and you flicker it in out of play, you Kitchen Finks, so you gain 2 life. So yeah, that's just value, and then it's basically just synergetic with any enter the battlefield triggers. It has flash on it, so it blocks. It has flying, so it gets 3 on the evasion side. It's 1 white, so it can splash them. It can be splashed in, or it's very easy to cast if you're running multiple colors. Very solid cards. They're not that expensive. They're fairly priced. I think they're under $10 right now for this copy. It's from Avacyn Restored. It's a rare. It's just a very solid card, and you can do a lot of like silly things with persist creatures because the counters come off and they enter back in. So you could do it for protection, or it's very good when it things like when it leaves the battlefield triggers. So like a Thragtusk effect, because they're not dying. They're just exiting play and re-entering play. So anything that has leave the battlefield triggers also happen. Lastly, we have Stoneforge Mystic, which is a 1 generic mana, 1 white creature core artificer, rare from Zendikar block, and when it enters the battlefield, you may search your library for an equipment card, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle your library, and it has 1 generic mana, 1 white, tap, you may put an equipment card from your hand onto the battlefield, so you're not casting it, and it's a 1/2. So therefore, it should really read, when it enters the battlefield, search your library for any sword. Then, the next turn, you pay, or if it has haste, you pay 2, tap it, put the equipment onto the battlefield, and you don't have to cast it, so it goes around all kind of counterspells. This is a card that was banned in Standard. It was also banned in Modern, and it still is banned in Modern. And it's very broken, and you don't do something where you can't. Wizards makes the mistake of printing cards that you can search up for and then also cheat onto the battlefield in the same thing. You don't do that. That's very broken. They don't make cards like that anymore. It's a very good white card. It's not going to win you the game. It could win you the game. It has a power of 1, so it could technically win you the game. But basically, you're searching up a sword. You're going to go get it, and then you're going to play it, and you could throw it on this guy, or you could throw it on anything else, because at that point, the sword is in play, and therefore it's not interacting with the game. You're just playing solitaire, and it's very good. So that's it for the white cards. It took me a long time to do that. It took me a long time to edit that. Actually, I accidentally deleted part of it when I was trying to edit it at one point. But if you, I didn't go through extensively every single card as much as I could. I just kind of went over them and kind of gave you a brief description of what they kind of do and how they're broken and why they're in the cube or if they're a good value and whatnot. So maybe did I explain enough about them or did I not? And how do you feel? Please like and subscribe. I appreciate everything and everyone watching the video. Thank you.